Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of our Let's Play of Hearts of Iron 4, The Wrath of Rio, which is basically Fascist Brazil. So, we are playing as Fascist Brazil. Let's kick it off. There we go. Again, I'm taking it a little slower than normal. Usually play about 4 or 5 depending on what's going on, especially in single player. 3 in multiplayer because, well, to be quite honest, anything above 3 really degrades and you keep getting kickback from the system. But yeah, so anyway... let's see here. So I got everything last episode talking about the setup and our game plan and what we're going to do. So I guess let's talk about my plan of attacks then. So, for lack of better terms, you just saw me. I set up a front line, then I set up a specific, what do you want to call that type of thing? Offensive line, mostly against the river. And then down a certain ways around Buenos Aires, and then down around this dock. Let me explain the rationale behind that while the time ticks away mildly slowly. So, the game plan basically is you see how it draws this line. You have the front here, or you have the front here and the offensive line here, and then you have this little arrow saying the direction of the attack. So what's going to basically happen is the first attack is going to come through this top corner here from where it's currently at. It'll slowly spread all the way down. Instead, what I should probably do is modify this, drag this line, click and drag mouse to add a new, so let's move it down to this section, so I can move it all the way up there at the top, move down any of these areas. I think there is probably going to be our best bet, and you want to know why? Because instead of marching in through here first, we're going to start by marching it across the entirety of the line and work our way down. So it's a little bit quicker of an attack. I actually probably want to see if I can modify it again. And instead of it being all the way up there, why don't I have it come down like that? So you can modify your attacks a little bit. When you first draw it, that's fine. You just kind of draw it and let it do its thing. But then you want to somewhat modify it. So now I'm coming in down across. My attack's a little bit stronger that way, because instead of just going, one here, then here, then here, then down, I'm not coming across all 3 of these states. Is it states or territories? I want to say that those are territories. Forgot what the province is? No, it's the entire thing's a province. Anyway, so instead of coming across these little territories, I'm not coming across the entire line all at once, instead of one at a time. It makes my attack a little quicker, and then once you get out to, this area here, then it starts to spread out slowly. So, as for why I chose my lines the way they are, crossing a river obviously gives you a sort of a negative penalty for crossing. It's a little more apparent in other games, such as EU4 and CK2. You start to see that you suffer really large penalties for doing crossing in terms of like 50% crossings, reduction, and everything else. It's a dice roll system on like a D10, either a D6 or D10, and you get an automatic -1, I think, for river crossing. You get like a -2 if you're in the mountains, etc., etc. Well, in Hearts of Iron, it's roughly similar, so basically you want to avoid river crossings where possible. Hence why I'm basically making my line right up here against the river, so that way it's pretty much a stable position. They can't push against me, I can't push against them, kind of works out. But I do need to take down here so I can get Buenos Aires, the capital, because the capital's worth a lot. So just taking standard territory doesn't really do a whole heck of a lot. What happens is you got to take these victory points. So Buenos Aires is worth 10, this port is worth 1, see if we can't find another one. That port is worth nothing. Graphical error there. Alright, so like this is worth 1, this mountain is worth 1, this is worth 1. So basically, as far as I can see, there's roughly, what is that, 1, 2, 3, 4, so 14 victory points total that this country has. And is there any easy way you can determine that? I don't think so. I don't see anything here about victory points per se. Let me just move my microphone over. Alright, so there's nothing in here roughly giving you details at a quick glance about how many victory points they have that you need to capture. But what happens is you gotta look at their unity. So, their base of unity is 70. So with that being said, I need to capture 70% of their 14 points, and if I do the math on that real quick, I'm not good at that type of math. That's complex fractions. So, or complex decimals. So 14 times 0.7. Basically, if I take Buenos Aires, I pretty much got it. So that's kind of how it goes. Is you need, there's sometimes different little circumstances where if you take their army, you can cause them to capitulate faster because they have no way to fight back, so they kind of automatically shut down. But other times you get into circumstances where it's going to be a tough battle, but you take all their victory points and they automatically lose because they have no, they lose all their unity. I guess for lack of better terms, they basically lose all unity and all support for the government because they believe that they can't hold the country anymore because they lost all the important parts of the country, for lack of better terms. So with that being said, provided I just capture Buenos Aires and possibly this one port, I'm pretty much golden right there. At that point in time, it's pretty much all I need to do. I pretty much have victory over Argentina, or Argentina, however you pronounce it. I gotta ask my girlfriend, she's a Spanish speaker. But yeah, so that's pretty much the easy way to guarantee victory. As long as I can do that, I'm pretty much going to take over Argentina. They'll capitulate. The rest will automatically get surrendered to me. No problems, and that'll be pretty much it. I won't need to worry about doing anything else. All right, let's move you down there. I'm actually readjusting this front slightly, because that way I have more troops down at the bottom, which means they'll move quicker. So yeah, I positioned this so that they attack a different way. I talked about why I drew the line where I did, and why these victory points are important. So I could arguably draw another line of attack if I wanted to. Let's say I capture that way. I need to break out and capture more. I could do the same sort of thing where I would then draw another line, but I want to capture out to there and then come back down like that. So that's a possibility. I could do that so that once this attack is complete, they'll then execute this attack by moving forward like that. You can see how the line goes. They just move from their positions to take that next space. So that being said, this is actually a pretty poorly designed plan. I can obviously move this around up and down to try and get a better attack like I did earlier, or I could just delete it because it's not really that important to me. But that's how you create a second plan of attack, is you can keep just drawing in more and more and more lines of attack, and they'll plan for it and make adjustments and everything else, so that way you just hit that go button down below, and they'll start executing all those attacks one after another after they accomplish their things. So that being said, if I bring them back up, let's see, so that's our offensive lines. Fallback lines and garrison areas, that's not important at the moment. Division assignment mode isn't important either. I never really messed with that. Naval invasion I can't really do yet. So yeah, that's, arguably I really could be dirty and do a naval invasion from this port over to Buenos Aires and basically just take it that way. Not even have to fight on this line. But I can only have 7 units do a naval invasion. Naval invasions are not really guaranteed. I'll cover all that stuff later because, spoiler alert, while I can take all this stuff, probably no problem, when I get to Panama, that's going to be an issue. Sure, I can take Panama, that's probably all the victory points I need to take. It's the canal that's going to be an issue, because that's controlled by the US. I can't really get around that, so what I'm going to have to probably do to move on from there, and seeing as there's no ports over here, is I'll probably have to do a naval invasion from this port of Panama over here to Costa Rica. Or, you know, Nicaragua, Honduras, etc., etc. Eventually I'll have to go to Cuba, take out stuff that way, or into Haiti or Dominican Republic. I'll have to basically naval invade stuff in here before I can launch my attack in the United States. Do I really want to come across the Rio Grande and attack from here? Probably not. I probably want to cheat the system, jump into Florida, establish a nice foothold right here in the southeast, get all these ports so I have really good establishment of supply lines. But that's way down the road. That's getting way ahead of ourselves. What we need to focus on is this area. So, right now, I've pretty much covered everything I can until we really get into it. So we're going to kick up the speed a bit, make it move a little faster. Again, I usually play a lot faster than this, but trying to talk through stuff as we go. So we're going to bump it up a little to get it moving, so that way we're at least continuing. So, some things over here, we can at least look at our equipment. Our logistics supplies tells us exactly how many things we have, how our supply is doing with them, and how our it's going across the board. So if we take a look, we're at a positive 19 units of artillery versus our negative 5,000 units of infantry equipment. So basically what it's saying is that we are producing a surplus. Oh, so something happened here. Let's pause the game real quick. So we basically have a surplus of an average of a half of a artillery unit a day, or in this case, roughly 9 infantry equipment a day to help fill that gap. And that increases, obviously, or decreases based upon use. So the more military factories I have, the higher this number goes, but the more I use them, either via training more units or by having them do exercises or whatnot, that'll decrease this amount. So basically I want to try and increase these amounts to at least have a little bit of a surplus, if not a huge surplus. Large surpluses not going to really help us much, but hey, we'll eventually need it. Alright, so, well, what else do we have in here? We also have the bar chart here, which tells us the average per day. What is that again? We currently need an average. Oh, it's basically how much you have versus how much you need. So this is like a little graph as to telling you how much you. If you're at 0, that means you're spending a ton. If you're at 9, if you're at the top number here, that means you're basically banking a ton, is what that means. So it's telling us our basic supply lines on what we need. We're able to produce 64 a week, and that's pretty much just it. It's just telling us the numbers we need. Versus, right over here is the production efficiency. So all this is kind of at 50% currently. That kind of factors into our production here. You can see that we're at 50% of our ability to produce these things. This is down around a quarter, and this docks do not have any effect on that. So anyway, let's worry about the Rhineland over here. So Germany decided to remilitarize the Rhineland, which is this area over here. Well, that area and that area. So this used to be off limits. They couldn't stack infantry there. Well, guess what? Now they can. They can put things in here all they want. So the beginnings of German military force has begun. We're going to start to see them be aggressive because, again, we are doing good old... have they picked anything else yet? No. Alright, because we picked historical focus, we'll get to see them do what they do best. Alright, so we did our political effort, which means we've gained 150-ish, yeah, 120 political power. So we can immediately spend that on stuff, but we'll get to that in a moment. So now I need to do either a liberty or collectivists. We already had talked about why I don't want to do the liberty and why I'm going to do the collectivists. So we're going to go ahead and select that because we at least want to get to this one, the nationalism focus, before we do anything else. Because once we get that, we get a much quicker move towards fascism, and then we'll start working on the army effort. So in the meantime, collectivist ethos, that way we're basically it's just negating any democratic stuff. And in the meantime, we have our ability to modify government. We can either spend points here to upgrade our conscription laws. Currently our force is at volunteer, so only 1.5% of our total population is available for our army use. Now we could up it to conscription of different types. Obviously they cost more and more. Every 150 knocks 150 off the next one. So if I get to this one, the limited, it would take off 150 off the extensive, 150 off the service requirement, etc., etc. So that way, the next jump is cheaper, and I don't have to worry too much about it. That being said, if I really wanted to save all the way up, I could arguably jump to one of these, but there's no need. Right now I'm at 500,000 troops, don't really need to conscript anything, plus I'm going to get a huge bonus via the tree we're on eventually. So as time goes on, I will obviously need to hit up the limited conscription and eventually extensive, etc., etc., but we'll worry about that in the future. So our export focuses, eventually we'll probably want to do a limited export just to kind of close off our... one of the following must be true. Ruling party is not democratic, and I have... Okay, so yeah. So eventually I want to do this so that way I can prevent a lot of my resources in-house from being shipped out. So all those resources I want to capture, some of them can be taken away from me via trade, which, you know, typically you want to trade, it's not a bad thing, but sometimes it's not exactly great if you're limited on your resources. It helps prevent you from losing too many resources to other countries. So our economy, we can boost our economy, so, you know, in different facets, so that way we can have better swapping of military to civilian factory costs. We can have different terms of our cost of construction speed, etc., etc. This is typically one of the first things I recommend doing. Well, maybe like third. Typically, I recommend doing one of the theorists so you get additional daily military experience, because that way it really helps you out, so it builds up the experience so you can modify your army templates early. Now again, that's not a big deal right this moment. Instead, we want to do our political advisor. So sometimes people are going to recommend you do like the guy to give you additional political power. It's not a bad thing, because you get just additional political power is never bad. Right now I'm getting 1 because I have... Basically what happens is you get 2 a month regardless. Your base value is 2. But then your political thing that I selected from in here, your national spirit or whatever this is called. What is it called? The focus tree. That automatically takes 1 away. Fabricating claims takes about a quarter, etc., etc. So there's different things that eat away at that base of 2 a year, or a month rather. Month or day? Day. But instead, you know, people usually recommend that. Some people recommend the national unity, because that's not a bad thing, because then, I mean, that would make me up to 95, which is massive. Basically, they need to take every last little bit of territory I own. But, as long as you hold your capital, you're probably fine. So, then there's the other ones, the different types of whoever you want. Ooh, I can get monthly opinion. Oh, that's kind of cool. Everyone starts to like you. Basically, the other one is these 3, which is the different types of factions. I'm going, or not factions, government types. So obviously, I want to go fascism. So that automatically jumps me into this event, which is basically I need to choose what I want to do here in terms of the rise of fascism. So basically, it's saying that the Brazilian people have a noble history that's been made to forget under weak and cowardly rule of the existing party, Estado Novo. They claim that representatives of the people, to be representatives of the people, but can so feeble a state enforce a will of the people, basically rhetoric, etc., etc. Only by spilling blood of these traitors will we fulfill our destiny, etc., etc. Fascist speakers in Brazil have made no secret of what they think of their current relationship and political system. Speeches like these have tapped into political dissonance that is political, or particularly pronounced in the more conservative sections of the military. So basically, it's just saying that we can begin a coup almost immediately, or we want to what types of coup we want. Do we want a like internal supported one or a popular supported one? So it's basically going to divide our country. Last time I did this was with the communism, and I kind of guided it so that I would have to do a referendum, which is basically your government gives up their power to the other faction. And that's kind of going to be the route I'm going to take. So, do I want to do an internal support for a fascist coup, or do I want to do chance of a popular support? Well, this basically means that I'm going to get a military coup and I got to fight for my country to switch to fascism. Whereas this one means that basically I'm going to rise up, gather more friendliness amongst the crowd, and then I'll eventually get to, it'll be the more popular opinion and we'll swap to it. So that's what I'm going to do. Because the military one, it can backfire really bad, you can get stuck, etc., etc. Generally, unless you really want to be daring and do something cool and switch immediately, you don't want to do the military coup idea, because a lot of times it can backfire. We've had experiments where basically the best general and the majority of the forces got swapped over to the opposing party, and they basically steamrolled your coup and you immediately lost the game. So it's easier just to do the referendum. It's the safer bet. Yeah, if I wanted to make an awesome, exciting video, I could do the military coup and start battling it out, but man, you lose a lot of resources. It's really tough to recover from. It's not really a good thing. So, Spanish Civil War just happened, which is typical. So they just split in between their fascist party and their communist party. Right now, I think right out of the gate, the communists had the advantage, but as long as the fascists know what they're doing and a little bit of RNG luck, they can box out a lot of units and pocket them, basically devoid or make it so they have no resources and easily capture them, taking out giant swaths of armies. So we'll see what happens with them over time, but it depends on RNG. It can go either which way right out of the gate. I've seen both happen numerous times. So as for me, I'm just going to sit here, kind of let my support for fascism grow, It'll grow slowly over time. Nothing I can really do. Oh, and hey, Italy finally conquered Ethiopia. So that raises the world tension by just a little bit. Well, the peace treaty dropped back down for the entirety of the Rhineland. So it went up by roughly 2 again. So this kind of negated each other because of Germany sending volunteer forces and Italy sending volunteer forces to the fascist group in Spain. As for anything else, that's really it. Nothing too major. Again, I really don't want to do that because basically this is what would happen if I did the Civil War route, is I would be divided in half, can't guarantee where I'd be sitting, I'd have no idea how many troops I have right out of the get-go, and as you can see here, the original housing party, which is the Soviets, they would have access to a much larger force than me, and I'd have to be fighting an uphill battle, doing really daring stuff to try and take out their victory points. That being said, we'll see what happens. So I finally got the electromechanical engineering. So there's it's a reduction of 2% to my research time. Might as well do the reduction of 3% as well, just to get it rolling, because it's still in that current year. And then once this is done, we'll eventually work on some of the other things. Infantry power is not a big thing at the moment. I'm not too worried about it. We'll get to all these places in their own time. So they're working on their planes. So they'll do that, then they'll do Bureau of Ships. They'll work their way across it. I'm not too worried, so long as I get kind of ignored while I crunch through all of South America. So now we're starting to see these battles take place. We have no intel on these battles, so I can't tell you how battles work yet, but we'll get to that when I start attacking Argentina. My naval forces are out here. I basically put them on search and destroy, so that way I have control of these areas. Let's see, what else is there? Not really a whole lot. Well, I guess with that said, I might as well bump it back up a little more, and we'll see where we go. By the way, if you guys have any questions as I go, please feel free to leave them in the comments. At this point in time, this game's been out for, what, 2 months, give or take? Maybe not 2 months, maybe a little less. I'd have to go look at the release date. I bought it, I pre-ordered it, so I got it right away. I don't even remember when I got it. But yeah, so, ooh, look at all those battles. So yeah, I'm sure by now a lot of you have played this and you're just kind of looking at this to see how I've, done these experiments and whatnot. But if you're new to the game, that's what I'm kind of trying to gear this towards. Otherwise, I'm trying to gear this also as a strategy for how to play a neutral country instead of the big ones like France, Soviet Union, etc., etc. So, kind of doing a dual purpose. Ooh, and look at this. This group just got pocketed. They pretty much just had this one area with 0 supply line left. So once this goes away, that pretty much kills off whatever forces were in here. They immediately lose them, and that's disastrous because when you lose all those forces, you don't get them back anywhere. So if they win this territory here, they can then spread all these forces out that were originally committed here along these lines here, meaning that they have more forces. Whatever Republican Spain had is just gone there. And then if they're smart, what they would do is they'd push here to break these two into sections, slowly work this away so that way you pocket all of them, and then again try and make pockets in here and try and take away stuff. Like here, they can cut through like that, take all this stuff over here. Basically what you want to do is reduce their supply lines. Like this has 0 supply lines because that yellow territory isn't touching any other yellow territory, so they're stuck. Or a port. Ports also you can get supplies in from. So I finished my collectivist. Now I'm doing the nationalist focus. We already talked about why I want to do it, but now we're executing it right away. So France is doing government reforms. Germany is doing West Wall. Triumph in Africa. Railways. Stalin. So I'm just kind of looking to see what all they're doing. Nothing too scary for me. Everything seems about right. Alright, so I'm surprised they still haven't taken this force out. But yeah, as I was saying, if they take that out and then they take this out, you can almost guarantee that Republican Spain is going to be in trouble. Especially with the help coming in. Oh, and they took it right there. Especially with the help from Germany and Italy. Because their troops are a little more advanced, especially if they sent... Typically what you do is if you're Italy or you're Germany, you send in armored units, because nothing in here can take on armored units, and you can just start steamrolling left and right, and basically capturing everything you want. The war is pretty much guaranteed if you're by yourself. The only way to counter it is in multiplayer. You also do armored units. Or if you're really unlucky and you make stupid moves and you get pocketed, then you can arguably lose your, what you want to call them, your armored units, and it really hurts. So, in the meantime, we're working our way as quick as we can to increase our fascist ranking. As you can see there, 10% favor the fascists, compared to 90% being a neutral country. It'll slowly work its way up. I'm kind of interested to see what happens over here in Spain. They're doing some large pushes, and if they're smart, they'll take these areas, so that way they cut off all that supply. And again, that's huge. Yeah, they'll have some supply coming in through this naval base, but arguably it might not be enough to fund all the troops there, and they'll slowly be able to lose gains left and right. So, kind of a thing going on. Ooh, they might lose Madrid right out the bat, which means the capital will move over here, and they basically lose a ton of points. So, again, national unity only really has to do with how close you are to being captured or kicked out. Oh, hey, I can upgrade stuff. So, with that being said, do I really want to... Because as soon as I get to fascist, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump to one of my either war economy or partial mobilization. Probably war economy, because that's a lot faster military. Yeah, I'd jump to war economy is what I'd probably do. Well, I could do total mobilization. No, you can't. You need to be at war, and yeah. So I need to go to war against the country who's basically better than me to go into total mobilization. That being said, I want to save up at least 150 so I can get into that. That might be right away, maybe not. So when I hit 300 though, that's when I'll go ahead and spend something on probably my military theorist, is what I'll do. That way I'm always reserving that extra 150 so I can switch my economy and even my recruitable population rate over if I need to. So how are these guys coming? Well, basically what this is telling me is I do not have enough supplies to fund the construction of any new forces. Need to build more things. Well, we look at our construction, it's going. I have one factory left to be built, and then I'll start getting the military factories out. So once that gets built, all these will start kicking off. We'll be good to go. We'll get more factories, which means we can produce more items, which means we can then produce more soldiers and forces. So, kind of gives me an idea of what I need to do. Well, I don't know. Do I want to do that or not? Alright, so, now we're at a crossroads here, and we'll probably make this the last part of the video. We have finished our national focus, giving us that additional support for fascism daily. Do I want to go and get the additional military population of 5 extra %? In addition, I get 20 extra army experience I can spend? Not right now, because just because I can get that experience doesn't mean I can spend it. So what I would do is I'd come over here, and like I talked about earlier, I would add in the artillery pieces. But if I add in the artillery pieces, we see here, I'm going to need 36 pieces of artillery for every unit, basically being 252. So I would only have 130, so I can only fill half those demands, meaning that all my troops would suffer negative penalties for not being, fully equipped. So it'd kind of suck, basically, is what I'm telling myself. So you don't want to do that until you have a much better stockpile. It basically wouldn't be beneficial to me at the moment. So instead, what I can do is I can either do the industrial effort to give me additional bonus for industry, or I could do the army effort, giving me additional military experience and research in my land doctrine, which is what I want. Why is that? Because if we go back here, we look at our land doctrines are kind of the big deal. That's like passive bonuses that are kind of huge. Makes you infinitely more powerful than somebody who hasn't researched any of these things. It's just flat out bonuses like entrenchment and then entrenchment speed, or additional soft attack, or things like additional breakthrough and pinning, or like this one is additional reinforcement rates, etc., etc. As to which of these I want to do, I don't know. I feel like I've done mobile a lot. I feel like I've done grand battle plan a lot. What I haven't done is superior firepower. I might do that one, because I'm going to be doing mostly infantry with artillery support. So this one might be the way to go, and I'll eventually throw in artillery or tank with them too. So this might be the best way to go. So that being said, am I at the point where I want to invest into my army that much? Because that will allow me to do the infantry equipment, which means I'll boost to that first one real quick. Or do I want to work on my building up my factories? That's a tough decision. I'm thinking I'll do my industry first, and I'll rotate back and forth. I'll kind of do one on each, kind of go back and forth, see how they go, and see what my needs are. Right now, my needs are building up. So that's why I decided I'm going to go with the industrial effort. Because quite clearly, I need more factories, I need more stuff. So it doesn't help me to make my army more powerful if I can't build more army with which to sustain itself. So that's why we're going that route. Alright, and with that, I think that's going to bring us to our time limit for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys have any questions, please leave a comment or hit me up on Twitter or Facebook. I'll be more than happy to respond and give you my learning knowledge from playing this extensively with a bunch of friends and by myself. And of course, if you just have any other comments, just go ahead, voice them. I'll hang out, I chit-chat, I do my best to respond. Alright guys, thank you very much. If you guys enjoyed it, I appreciate it if you want to subscribe so you can get further output of my content. And of course, follow me on Twitter, and I talk about a lot of junk on there too. Eventually I'll start streaming more stuff, etc., but that's not right this moment. We can worry about that later. I gotta get going. But yeah, so thanks everybody, and I will catch you in the next episode of our Let's Play Parts of Iron 4, The Wrath of Rio. See you guys then.